King Edward Hotel behind me here was built in several stages between 1905 and 1910. It's a fairly simple structure, brick, Georgian in character. It is really the last example of a whole collection of hotels that were built along 9th Avenue Southwest in downtown Calgary at a time when the train station still served passengers at the corner of Centre Street. There was a number of hotels. The 9th Avenue in those days was either called Hotel Row or later, because they all had bars, was called Whiskey Row. So as the last example of that, that's one of its historical importances. Throughout the life of the building, it served many functions, but its bar was one of the first desegregated bars in the 1950s. In fact, the first in Calgary, so it's known for that. And then it became the premier blues music venue in Calgary, and in fact was considered one of the premier venues, I think, in Canada, and many famous names, B.B. King, John Hammond, many came here over the years. It was much loved by musicians, but also much loved by the citizens of Calgary itself. In 2008, the building became municipally designated, heritage designation, at the request of City Council, after much discussion about the fate of the building because of the improvements that were being built for the reconstruction of the East Village. And one of those improvements in front of us here was the new 4th Street Southeast underpass, a new underpass under the CP rail tracks. And the original alignment of that would have required either removal of the building or the road significantly close to the building, which would have really prevented it from having much of a viable use. So after much discussion and much input from the local heritage community about the social importance of the building and the importance to the music community, the alignment of 4th Street was shifted slightly to allow the building to remain in its current position, allow us to have adequate amount of sidewalk space around it, and allow it to function in the future. When the National Music Centre was looking for a site, the King Edward Hotel, because of its importance as a music venue, stood out for them, and they developed this design through a competition involving international architects from around the world that really involved incorporating the historic hotel and the restoration of the building into the design itself, and that's what you see in front of you now. Any heritage restoration, you want to disturb the original integrity of the building as little as possible, which means not taking the building down entirely and rebuilding it, which was the intention in this case. However, during construction, there was seen to be significant issues with the building's structural integrity. The original intent had been to leave the shell and then rebuild all of the internal spaces and structure within it. That proved not to be possible. So in the end, the building was taken down brick by brick and then reinstalled, new windows, etc. What that allowed us to do actually was to turn the bricks around, which gives us an unpainted, fresh brick facade, and in fact really returns the building to its original appearance in that regard. We had to make a case for the fact this is a museum, this is a container for important artifacts as well as the music functions, and that what will make that container an interesting building on the street really is how the skin is treated, what is the material and how it's articulated. And the architects worked very, very hard to come up with a really interesting skin. So the tile that's used in a couple of different ways, and the way that it has an iridescence, it has a kind of luminance that changes with the sun, is one of the things that takes this from being somewhat of a blank box to a really interesting sculptural form that's going to look different in every different light. So that's an exciting piece about it as architecture as well.